Missouri suffers its first loss of the season, 27-24 to number 8 Alabama, a game going into it where it was supposed to be the big test for Missouri. And I think they were tested in the right ways. And ultimately, my biggest takeaway is I'm surprised that Missouri only lost by 3 points. And, it's really remarkable that Missouri had the chance with just under a minute left to go down here, only trailing by 3 to win the game. Really impressive for all that they did to themselves, all the mistakes they made throughout this game, that they had that opportunity. But then, it ends. The only reason they don't win that is because of an interception on a throw from Bo Perbula. So we're here to recap it all, talk about what went wrong, what we learned about this game. Joey Van Summer joined by Michael Stamps here for On SI. Michael, what were your main thoughts from this one?
Yeah, in all seriousness, I feel like it was not super pretty on either side of the ball. If you think about Mizzou, it seems like outside of their first drive of the game on offense, like there was a lot of mistakes literally everywhere else outside of that one drive, and that one drive was not a representation of how they played at all. It was a little too good to be true, maybe. But I agree with what you said. I think Alabama did test them in all the right ways. I think we learned a lot about this team. On both sides, all 3 phases of the ball, really, because there was some interesting stuff, all around. Gonna be a lot to unpack from this one. I think it's really important to say though that the sky is not falling.
Right.
The season is not done. I think we might know more of what this team's ceiling is, and what this team's true identity is now. But the season's not done. This is still a good football team. It's very clearly a good football team. Just maybe not to the point that some people out there in the universe might have thought. Still a good football team. Season's not over. Still a good team, but definitely learned a lot about them.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about the importance of this game going into it as far as, what can this mean? If they win this, what does their path to the college football playoff look like? And if they won this one, obviously, it became a lot more clear. But the opportunities are still there to get those resume-boosting wins further down the line, even though, they still, by strength of schedule numbers, might not look like the toughest schedule they have to what should be top 10 or at least top 15 matchups coming down the line. I think they have a strong identity. I think in this game we've learned, though, that kind of those same issues that we had saw early in the season continued to build up, and those wounds continue to be drawn farther open. So we'll get to those in a little bit. Let's first talk about the 2 things where I thought Missouri lost the game on, at least the 2 critical moments. Drinkwood said after this game, we just had too many mistakes in critical situations to win, which ironically, I think that's what Missouri has thrived off of the last few years as far as critical situations. They're not lucky. The ball doesn't simply bounce their way, but it's just the 1, 2, 3 plays that they make near the end of it that is able to seal it for them to come up with a really incredible win. And this time, Alabama's on more of those, and also Missouri shot itself in the foot too many times. So let's start off with Bo Perbula's interception as far as not executing those critical moments. The last one down here, it seemed like both this interception that ended the game and then his one where he was going to Kevin Coleman where Kevin just wasn't looking behind him, kind of similar issues. On Kevin, he wasn't on the same page with him, clearly, but he was throwing in the seam. On this last one here, throwing to the seam to Donovan, he said to us after the game that it was his first read on the play. He stuck to that. He thought he had a window to Donovan, and clearly just was not there for him. And I think all throughout this game, we continue to see, again, a wound that we had saw open early in the season continue to be strung further out as far as, Bo's decision-making has not been excellent. There's been a few throws every game where it's either, too risky of a throw or just not the read he should be making on a certain situation. And I think that stands really as his top issue right now. And it's quite frankly, a big issue. Michael, what are your thoughts on that and Bo's game overall?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to go back and watch how we did in the pocket. I can't really think of any glaring issues off the top of my head, but a lot of that stuff is a little deeper rooted. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. I still think just his general decision-making isn't 100%, even outside of the interceptions. Obviously, those were not good throws. And I think, again, kind of like, it might be unfair to completely blame those situations on Bo. That was my first instinct, but I'd be definitely to go back and see what the deal was there, because it's very possible that it was a miscommunication. But even when he's deciding whether he needs to throw or take off and run, He got pressured a lot, and
Yep.
I don't think he handled it terribly, but there are definitely still a few situations where you kind of question, his ability to evade pressure. Obviously, he's fast. We've seen that. It's clearly his biggest strength at this point in the season, who he is as a player. But, the decision-making, again, still off there. And, again, some of the throws he made were obviously questionable. That's been the case all season long, but it hasn't really shot him in the foot. It did this time, so it seemed like that was probably bound to happen against a good team, and it makes sense that a really good Alabama defense was the group to do it. All that being said, even though he threw this interception literally right here behind us, he did give them a chance to win the football game. And that shouldn't, be excluded from, this conversation. He gave them a chance. That deep ball right over there was very pretty, and obviously he converts on a touchdown. So the ball behind us to Donovan Olubade on 4th down on that final drive was, not like a great throw, but he still did it.
Yeah.
So again, he gave them a chance, and he semi put them in a position to go off and win the game. So that needs to be included. I feel like we can refer to him as a clutch player, whether it's on the ground or in the air, but that interception obviously is just not, off the top of our heads, not the best decision. So decision making definitely needs to improve.
Right, absolutely. And I think what you were talking about there, at the end of the game, those few throws he had to Donovan were really impressive, and crazy catches by Olubade as well, especially that one that put them right at the 3-yard line. But I agree with you there. I thought there were some plays today where he took the cut downs when you wanted him to. There, especially you got the offense as a whole was not in rhythm, but I thought Bo Perbula's connection with Brett Norfleet was in rhythm. And there was a few times where in that first half there, Brett might have had 5 catches in a row just of checking it down to him, and I thought those were good reads. But other than that, it seems like, again, like we said, decision-making is definitely where it needs to improve the most. With this offense as a whole, obviously what a lot of people have circled after this game is the fact that Ahmad Hardy only had 12 carries. Jamal Roberts had 5. So 17 for the two of those guys who have been the main identity for this whole team here. And, I think some of that is situation. And we talked about going into this game that Alabama can really force Missouri into a game that Missouri doesn't want to play that type of style. And we saw that happen today. Alabama dominated the time of possession, flip-flopping from what it was in the earlier part of the season for Missouri. And so Missouri wasn't able to run as much, especially when they're down. Especially that whole fourth quarter, it felt like there was 3 or 4 drives where it's like, okay, they need to do something here. And so high pressure situation, it made sense that they weren't running a whole ton in there. But again, it still just looks wrong to see that in the biggest game of the season against a run defense that has been vulnerable this year, that Ahmad Hardy only got 12 carries. Of course, when he was running on those 12 carries, his average was fine. But Alabama's run defense was definitely, even for all of the insecurities going into this game that Alabama run defense had, they were able to stop it pretty well, even on the outside, like cutting them quick. So they weren't able to get that run game in rhythm. And because of that, because of, the passing decisions, because of the passing, not being able to, again, generate anything past 5-10 yards, really hindered Missouri, and they, stayed ahead of the sticks the whole time. 3 for 13 on 3rd and 4th downs. Just, you're not going to win a football game with those numbers. Michael, what were your thoughts on Ahmad's quieter day and the offense as a whole?
Yeah, I do understand why they went away from the run game. Again, situationally, especially later, in the game, late third, all the fourth quarter, it made sense. There were drives where there wasn't a single handoff. But if you, again, keep the level of competition in mind before this, when you think about, I don't have a stat, but most of the explosive plays you've seen all year have been big rushing plays.
Yeah.
So I understand why they were trying to pass the ball down the field, but it just wasn't working. And I feel like you could have stuck to your guns a little bit more and ran the ball for a little bit longer and then abandoned it later in the game. It seems like they gave up on it pretty quick, especially, Bo's issues and accuracy and efficiency kind of became evident earlier in the game, like after that first drive. Maybe the drive after was fine, but it became pretty evident that whether it was an off day or this is just what it is. It was clear, and they still stuck with throwing the ball. So, we'll have to go back and watch and see what the deal was, and if what the defense was showing, justified it. Again, I think it's worth noting, like you said, that Alabama's run defense was very good. Their defensive front was great. I think there was some questions about their interior. I know LT Overton on the outside was a name I heard a lot, and he popped pretty clearly on the outside. So he was really good. I think just a really good defensive performance from Alabama in general.
Yeah.
So that obviously has something to do with it. But if you're asking me, I definitely think that Missouri could have, stuck to the run game a little bit longer.
Right, and we even saw on that big run that Jamal Roberts had right before the half that, eventually you just got to keep on mining.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're going to break through. You're going to find that big hole there. I think that was evident of that. One last thing on the offense, and going back to Drinkwood's point of not executing in those critical moments, making too many mistakes in those. Let's talk about the 4th and 6, where Missouri is trailing 20-17 at that point. And I mean, Missouri had gotten lucky again to be in that scenario. The defense had, the defense wasn't great on 3rd or 4th downs either, and Ty Simpson got his for sure. But I thought the defense overall today got some pretty big stops, including in the red zone and goal-to-go situations. And so, look, Missouri's in that situation. They decided to go for a fake punt. It was a question. I thought I'd be interested, too, as far as Drinkwood's reasoning. He explained the reason why they chose to go with a fake punt and not just play an offensive play. But I'd also be interested in his reasoning why they went for it at all. I probably agree with it just off the top of my head. I think with the situation, you don't know if you're going to get another chance. They can easily go down and get another situation. So why not just get it quicker, I guess, is part of it, too, with the time on the clock. But I just say, and Drinkwood said, part of it was trusting Jamal Roberts, which I think is fair. And, the offense didn't give them much reason to believe in them and have confidence on them on 3rd or 4th down. But I just think when you're in a 4th and medium situation in the biggest game of his career so far, and I'm not blaming this completely on Drinkwitz and everything like that, but just what was at stake in this game and what lied on this game to have the choice be a gimmicky fake punt. I'm just not seeing. Are you, Michael?
Yeah, no. Again, I think I agree with the decision to go for it and try and convert there. I think the whole purpose of a fake punt is obviously the element of surprise.
Yep.
I certainly did not expect that to happen. Right. Clearly Alabama looked like they were ready for it. I don't know, it was covered very well.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, it's kind of a hard one to call. I think the idea was right. I'm not a master of fake punts. I don't know if there's a way you can execute it better.
Right.
I feel like we've seen a good fake punt or two over the last couple seasons with Missouri, so obviously this was different than that. But yeah, I mean, I think it was the right idea. They, were in the right headspace of trying to convert there. Whether it was the right play call or not, I'm not sure.
Right, and I mean, this is obviously one of those things where if they convert, it's all. Oh, right. It's like the Missouri coaching staff is a genius. It's a great play, and if they convert that, I mean, ultimately, it's hard to pin so much on that in hindsight, just because of the fact that they still got the ball with down 3 with a minute and 11 seconds left. But still, I think it, who knows what happens in that situation if you have to put Alabama further down, because they do go down pretty quickly and score a touchdown there. So on that note, let's talk about the defense. Ty Simpson had a pretty fantastic day, I would say. Alabama as a whole, I mean, we talked about the 3rd and 4th downs for the offense, but Alabama was about 8 for 16 on 3rd and 4th downs combined, I believe, but 3 for 3 on 4th downs, and all 3 of those 4th downs were in pretty big moments. And again, some of those 3rd downs as well, especially in the first half, were in critical moments that the defense was just not able to get off the field. And so, I think what goes into that, I mean, really, I thought the pass rush did a solid job today. There was definitely some plays where Ty Simpson had too much time, but Ty Simpson has a little bit longer of a internal clock than most quarterbacks do. He can buy himself a few more seconds, and again, you have to give credit to Ty Simpson, but I also thought this was another showing where with the defensive secondary, they're having issues. And, especially in zone coverage on that second touchdown that Ty Simpson gets where Isaiah Horton is breaking free, has plenty of yards of separation. Early in the game, man, like those Alabama wide receivers were getting pretty wide open. So my main thoughts on the defense were, Damon Wilson had a good game. Pass rush was good at some points, had a few big stops, but the defense as a whole, and specifically the secondary, not doing enough to be able to win this one.
Yeah, I was honestly pretty pleased with the pressure they put on Ty Simpson. I think I wrote in the story that came out just before we started recording this, it seemed like when Ty Simpson was not pressured, which, again, I feels like probably close to a 50-50 split or maybe a little less pressure than more. But, I mean, if he's not getting pressured, he's going to throw a really good ball. It's just how it was. I mean, I feel like you probably walk away more impressed with Ty Simpson than frustrated with the Missouri defense. Again, the touchdown to Isaiah Horton was a beautiful pass. That fourth down conversion to Ladzier Brooks all the way over there was one of the better passes I've seen this entire season. So, I mean, you got to give some credit to Ty Simpson. Like we said, I don't think anyone's discrediting him, but he made some really incredible plays. But, yeah, when he wasn't getting pressured, he had more than enough time to throw some strikes. Again, I don't even think that's a knock on the defensive line. I think they, without their ability to get at him today, I think this is a completely different game. I think Ty Simpson threw some balls that you just weren't going to be able to stop, but there was also some where in zone coverage it was just bad. It was just not good. I even saying it out loud now, I think I have a couple plays that come to mind that were just not good, and I feel like you could still visibly see that the zone coverage is not great. You can also still visibly see that there are communication issues. We've been talking about it literally the entire season. Maybe it didn't look much better today. So I think that's definitely an area for concern. But again, without the pass rush, we're talking about a potential blowout. I think I just don't think there was anything that Missouri was going to be able to do outside of the front line in terms of stopping Ty Simpson. I think it's also kind of underrated that Alabama's run game was solid. Before Jim Miller went out in the fourth quarter, I mean, I think he had 80-something rushing yards. So they were able to at least Jam Miller outran Ahmad Hardy. So that was an area that kind of surprised me. I would imagine that they were extremely focused on defending the pass, which makes plenty of sense. But Jam Miller kind of did his thing too. I guess it really didn't impact the game all that much because there weren't any points that came out of that. But it was still, good yards that they gained there. So yeah, I mean, my overall theme is that it wasn't a great performance. Could have been worse. I think, like I said, without the pass rush and what they did, I think this is a different final result.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point there. All right, let's wrap this up just talking about where this team stands now. They're probably going to be still in the bottom teens of the ranking, I'd imagine. They'll still be there. I think this is most definitely not a game where Missouri got embarrassed, which has been the case. It was the case last year when they had to play, good teams like Texas A&M and Alabama. So at the very least, there's that to rest on. I think it'll be interesting as far as I'm interested to see. I know the immediate fan reaction on Twitter right now is pretty negative, and like you said, Michael Sky is falling, at least in a lot of people's eyes. But I still think, it's definitely an odd feeling to have, because for as much as Missouri did make those big plays in the third or fourth quarter, again, they were really fighting against themselves. So the comeback they had to forge was more so against themselves than anybody else. So I'm interested to see how they perform in Auburn, how they perform in Vanderbilt, how they respond to this loss, because ultimately I think this is not only is it not an embarrassing loss, it's also not one where it's like, okay, they can't beat a good team, which was my reaction after they lost to Texas A&M. Really, it's like this is going to be, I can't see how this team is going to beat, when it has to play better teams. I don't have this reaction after this game because of what they did in the second half, all things considered, and also because off day for Ahmad Hardy, at least that's what the stats tell you right now, and I think this team can play a lot better than it did today. Any final thoughts there?
I was also thinking it seems like every competitive game this team plays ends up being some stupid, ridiculous, crazy finish, and they've been on the positive outcome of that for quite a long time, obviously. Kind of a similar feeling at the end of this one compared to South Carolina last season when they, it was weird and they find themselves with the opportunity to win and they take the lead, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't happen in a completely different game, obviously, in completely different circumstances. But the feeling is similar at the end, where it's like they're used to winning these games and we are all used to seeing them win these games. So again, I think it says a lot about Alabama. It's a really good football team. To come here and win is not easy. That's a fact.
You're right.
So that's impressive in itself. But again, like I said at the beginning, the sky's not falling. I do think we know a lot about this team. This is what this team is. So take that for what it is. But we learned a lot about this team today, I think.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us at Missouri Tigers on SI. Make sure we have all the press conferences posted from today, and then we'll have coverage throughout all this upcoming week, and then we'll be in Auburn next week. So we appreciate you tuning in. Hope you do the same for the rest of our coverage.